Picture this. It's 2:31 in the morning. You're jolted awake by sounds that no parent should ever hear. Your children are bleeding, dying, and within hours, the police won't be looking for an intruder. They'll be looking at you. Welcome back to True Crime Mysteries, where we dive deep into the cases that keep the world talking. I'm your host, and today we're unraveling one of the most controversial death penalty cases in American history. Now, before we get into this story, if you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. And for those of you who've been riding with us, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. Are you team innocent or team guilty? Let's see what you think by the end of this video. Right now, as you're watching this, there's a woman sitting in a prison cell in Gatesville, Texas. Her name? Darlie Routier. She's 55 years old. She's been on death row for nearly 3 decades, almost 28 years. That's longer than some of you watching this have been alive. Darlie was convicted of capital murder. The state of Texas says she murdered her own 2 sons, Devon and Damon, in cold blood. They say she stabbed them while they slept. They say she staged a crime scene to cover it up. And they say she deserves to die by lethal injection for what she did. But here's where it gets complicated. Darlie has never stopped claiming her innocence. For 28 years, she's been saying the same thing. I didn't do this. An intruder came into my home and destroyed my family. So who's telling the truth? Was this a mother driven to the unthinkable? Or was she a victim of a rush to judgment, bad forensics, and a media circus that destroyed her before she ever stepped into that courtroom? Stick around, because by the end of this video, you're going to have all the facts, and then you can decide for yourself. Before we go any further, let's take a moment to honor 2 beautiful souls who were taken far too soon. Devon Routier, who would have turned 36 this year, and Damon Routier, who would be 34. 2 little boys who never got to grow up, never got to chase their dreams, never got to experience all the beautiful moments life had waiting for them. Their lives were cut short in the most brutal, unimaginable way. And regardless of what happened in that house on June 6, 1996, one thing is certain. These boys deserved better. They deserved to live. They deserved justice. May their precious souls rest in eternal peace. Drop an amen in the comments below and tell us where you're watching from. Let's honor these boys together.
June 6, 1996, 2:31 a.m., Rowlett, Texas. A 911 dispatcher picks up the phone, and on the other end is pure chaos. A woman's voice, frantic, desperate, screaming. "My babies are dying! Somebody came in here! They stabbed my babies!" That voice? It belonged to 26-year-old Darlie Routier. Now, this 911 call, 5 minutes and 44 seconds long, would become one of the most dissected, analyzed, and scrutinized recordings in criminal history. People would listen to it over and over, trying to hear guilt or innocence in every breath, every sob, every word. Police arrived within minutes, and what they found inside that house at 5801 Eagle Drive? Absolute horror. 2 young boys, Devon and Damon, lying in pools of their own blood on the family room floor. Both had been stabbed multiple times. Devon, just 6 years old, was already gone. Damon, only 5, was still gasping for air, fighting for his life. He wouldn't make it. And there, standing in the middle of this nightmare, was their mother, bleeding, injured, her throat slashed, deep cuts on her arms, blood everywhere. But here's the thing. She was alive, conscious, talking, and she had a story. She told police that someone had broken in, a stranger, a white male about 6 feet tall, wearing dark clothes and a baseball cap. She said he attacked her boys, attacked her, and then ran out through the garage. At first, it seemed like a home invasion gone horribly wrong, a tragedy, a mother who survived an attack that killed her children. But almost immediately, the investigators started noticing things. Little things, strange things, things that didn't quite add up. And that's when the investigation took a dark turn, because the question was no longer who did this, it became, did she do this? But before we get to what the police found, let's rewind. Let's talk about who Darlie Routier was before this night, because if you're going to understand this case, you need to know her story.
Darlie Lynn Peck was born on January 4, 1970, in Altoona, Pennsylvania. When she was 15, she moved to Lubbock, Texas with her mom and stepdad, and that's where her love story began. Her mom got a job at a Western Sizzlin' steakhouse. Working there as a cook, a 17-year-old kid named Darlie Routier. He was the assistant manager, voted most likely to succeed in high school. Quiet, hard-working, ambitious. The day young Darlie walked into that restaurant, it was love at first sight. She was stunning. Blonde hair, bright smile, confidence that turned heads. And Darlie, he was smitten. They went on their first date that same night, and from there, inseparable. In August 1988, just 3 years after they met, they got married. Darlie was 18, Darlie was 20, young, in love, and ready to take on the world. And for a while, everything they touched turned to gold. Darlie started a business called TestNeck, testing electronic components, and it boomed. By 1995, the company was pulling in around $500,000 in revenue. Darlie was paying himself a 6-figure salary, $125,000 a year. They moved to Rowlett, an upscale suburb outside Dallas, bought a gorgeous 2-story brick house on Eagle Drive, spent thousands renovating it to perfection. Darlie bought a Jaguar and a 30-foot cabin cruiser for lake trips. Darlie? She got breast implants, diamond rings on every finger, designer clothes, and long bleached blonde hair. They were living. But despite all the flash, the neighbors loved them. Darlie wasn't just some materialistic housewife. She baked cookies for the neighborhood kids, made meals for families going through hard times, even paid a mortgage payment for a friend battling cancer. And then came the boys. Devon was born on June 14, 1989, less than a year after they got married. Damon came along on February 19, 1991, and in October 1995, they welcomed their third son, Drake. 3 beautiful boys, a thriving business, a dream home. From the outside, the Routiers had it all. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. By early 1996, things started to shift. Darren's business? It was struggling. Orders slowed down, revenue dropped, and the bills? They started piling up. The Routiers were behind on their mortgage at least a month. They owed $10,000 in back taxes to the IRS, another $12,000 on credit cards. The day before the murders, Darlie applied for a $5,000 vacation loan. He was denied. Now, you'd think with all this financial stress, there'd be arguments, fights, tension. But according to neighbors, they never saw it. The Routiers seemed determined to keep up appearances. Darlie kept shopping, they never argued in public. They were still planning trips, still smiling for the cameras. But there was one thing Darlie couldn't hide, and it would come back to haunt her at trial. On May 3, 1996, just 1 month before the murders, Darlie wrote something in her diary. Something dark. Something prosecutors would use to paint a picture of a woman on the edge. She was suffering from postpartum depression after giving birth to Drake. In the entry, she talked about suicide. She wrote to her 3 sons begging them to forget me and stop taking ownership of my passing. Now, postpartum depression is real. It affects millions of mothers. It's a medical condition, not a character flaw. But prosecutors didn't see it that way. They saw it as evidence. Evidence of a woman spiraling out of control. Was Darlie struggling? Absolutely. But does that make her a killer? That's the question that would define her trial. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's get back to that night. The night everything changed. Quick poll. Do you think financial stress is enough motive to harm your own children? Drop your thoughts in the comments. June 5th, 1996. It seemed like any other night in the Routier household. Darren and Darlie stayed up late talking, past midnight. They kissed goodnight. Darren went upstairs to the master bedroom where their 7-month-old baby, Drake, was sleeping in his crib. Darlie stayed downstairs. She'd been sleeping on the couch all week because Devon and Damon had been camping out in the family room since school let out. They loved sleeping down there. And Darlie? She was a light sleeper who'd sometimes wake up to Drake just turning over in his crib. So she curled up on the couch next to her 2 older boys. The TV was on. The house was quiet. And somewhere around 2:30 in the morning, everything went to hell. According to Darlie's statement to police, she woke up to Damon touching her shoulder. "Mommy, Mommy," he was crying out. In the darkness, she didn't even realize she'd been hurt. She saw a man, a shadow, moving through the kitchen toward the garage. She followed him. In the utility room, she saw a knife on the floor. The intruder must have dropped it. She picked it up. Later, on the 911 call, she'd tell the dispatcher she touched the knife, that her fingerprints were on it, and she hoped they could still get the prints of whoever attacked them. She placed the knife on the kitchen counter. Then she looked down. Blood everywhere. Her throat had been slashed. Her arms were sliced open. She screamed for Darren. And then she saw them. Devon and Damon lying on the floor in pools of blood. That's when she called 911.
Now, when police arrived, they started documenting the scene, and pretty quickly they started seeing things that made them uncomfortable. Things that didn't fit Darlie's story. First, let's talk about the garage. Remember, Darlie said the intruder escaped through there, right? But here's the problem. There was no evidence anyone had run through that garage. No blood drops on the floor, the windowsills covered in untouched dust. If someone climbed through that window, they would have disturbed the dust. They didn't. The flower beds outside? The mulch was completely undisturbed. No footprints. No evidence anyone ran through there to escape. But it gets stranger. Inside the house, investigators found circular blood drops on the kitchen floor. Now, circular drops mean the blood was deposited by someone standing still or walking slowly, not running, not chasing an intruder. Then they used luminol, a chemical that reveals blood that's been cleaned up. And guess what they found? Darlie's bloody footprints in front of the kitchen sink. The pattern suggested she'd been standing there for a while, bleeding. And there was evidence that blood had been wiped up around the sink. Let that sink in for a second. If you just woke up to find your children dying, would you be cleaning up blood, or would you be trying to save them? But wait, there's more. A vacuum cleaner was found knocked over, on top of Darlie's bloody footprints, and broken glass was laying on top of the blood drops. Think about that. The glass was broken after the blood was on the floor, which means someone staged this scene. And that someone? Police were starting to think it was Darlie. Hold up. What's your take so far? Does the evidence scream staged scene to you? Or could there be another explanation? Comment below.
All right, here's where this case goes from tragic to explosive. Because 8 days after Devon and Damon were murdered, something happened that would seal Darlie's fate. The Routier family held a birthday party at the cemetery for Devon. It would have been his 7th birthday. And they invited a local news crew to film it.
Now, I need you to picture this. It's been 1 week since these boys were brutally murdered. 1 week. And what does the camera capture? Darlie Routier standing at her son's graves, smiling, laughing, chewing gum. She's singing Happy Birthday and spraying silly string all over the gravestones. There are balloons, gifts, an airplane overhead towing a birthday banner. And Darlie, she looks almost giddy. Meanwhile, her husband Darren is standing behind her, hands in his pockets, head down. He takes a step back when Darlie starts spraying the silly string, like he's uncomfortable, embarrassed. When prosecutor Greg Davis saw that footage, he knew he had his smoking gun, because it had only been a week, 1 week, and here was a full-blown birthday party happening at a gravesite. 4 days after that video aired on local TV, Darlie Routier was arrested and charged with capital murder. Now, here's where it gets complicated. Darlie's supporters say that video was taken completely out of context. They claimed that before the cameras started rolling, the family held a solemn memorial service. They prayed, they cried, they grieved. The silly string part? That was supposed to be a celebration of Devon's life, a way to honor him with joy instead of just tears. But the jury never saw the prayer part. They only saw the silly string, over and over and over again. Some jurors admitted they watched it 7 or 8 times during deliberations. And that image of a mother laughing at her murdered children's graves became seared into America's consciousness. Real talk. If you lost your children, how would you grieve? Is there a right way? Drop your honest thoughts below. Let's have a respectful conversation.
On January 6, 1997, Darlie Routier's trial began in Kerrville, Texas. The venue was moved from Dallas because of the insane media coverage. And Kerrville? Let's just say it's in one of the most conservative, pro-death penalty counties in the entire state. The prosecution's strategy was clear. Paint Darlie as a vain, materialistic, self-centered woman whose lavish lifestyle was crumbling. They argued she killed her sons because they were in the way, because she wanted her life back. They called 38 witnesses, crime scene experts, blood spatter analysts, all building a circumstantial case. One expert, Tom Bevel, testified about blood patterns on Darlie's nightshirt. He said cast-off blood on the back of her shirt proved she'd raised the knife over her head and stabbed her sons repeatedly, the blood flying off the blade with each swing. That testimony? Devastating. It painted a picture of a mother standing over her children, stabbing them while they slept. But the defense fought back. They pointed out there was no motive. The boys had life insurance, sure, but only $10,000 total. That didn't even cover the funeral costs, which exceeded $14,000. And if Darlie killed for money, why not kill Darren? He had an $800,000 life insurance policy. That's real money. And why leave Drake alive? If she was trying to escape motherhood, why kill 2 sons and leave the baby? The defense also brought in medical experts. San Antonio's chief medical examiner, Vincent DeMaio, testified about Darlie's neck wound. He said it came within 2 millimeters of her carotid artery. 2 millimeters, the width of a pencil lead. DeMaio said that wound was not consistent with self-inflicted injuries. It was too deep, too dangerous. No one faking an injury would cut that close to their own carotid. But then, Darlie made a decision that destroyed her case. Against her lawyer's advice, she took the witness stand. It was a disaster. Under cross-examination, she crumbled. She cried at odd times, got defensive, claimed amnesia about key events, and every time the prosecution presented damning evidence, she'd suddenly remember something new to explain it away. The jury didn't buy it. They saw selective amnesia, convenient memory. The trial lasted 5 weeks. On February 1, 1997, the jury returned with their verdict after just 8 hours of deliberation. Guilty of capital murder. 3 days later, they sentenced her to death by lethal injection.
But here's the thing that haunts this case to this day. There was evidence the jury never saw, evidence that might have changed everything. Remember I told you police secretly placed recording devices at the boy's gravesite? Well, that surveillance captured the entire cemetery visit, including the solemn memorial service before the silly string party. It showed the family praying, crying, grieving, being human. But because of legal concerns about the hidden surveillance, that tape was never shown to the jury. They only saw the silly string, never the tears. Then there's the bloody sock. Darlie's sock was found in an alley 75 yards from the house. It had blood from both Damon and Damon on it, but none of Darlie's blood. The prosecution said Darlie planted it to make it look like an intruder fled the scene. But here's the problem. If Darlie planted that sock after her throat was cut, where's her blood trail? She was bleeding heavily. There should have been blood on the back patio, the fence, the alley. There was none. No blood anywhere outside the house except on that sock. And let's talk about the timeline. According to the medical examiner, Damon couldn't have survived longer than 6 to 9 minutes after being stabbed. Darlie was on the phone with 911 for 5 minutes and 44 seconds. A police officer arrived just as the call ended and was with her for at least another minute. Damon was still alive when paramedics got there. Do the math. Darlie had maybe 2 minutes to stab her sons, run to the garage, cut the screen, go through the window, run 75 yards down a dark alley barefoot, drop the sock, run back, stab herself, clean up blood around the sink, stage the crime scene, and call 911. 2 minutes. Is that even physically possible? Let's be real. Could someone do all that in 2 minutes? Comment your thoughts. This timeline is wild.
Now here's where this case gets absolutely infuriating. In 2008, 11 years after her conviction, a court finally ordered DNA testing on key evidence: the sock, the nightshirt, fingerprints found at the scene. This testing could prove her innocence or confirm her guilt. Either way, it would give us answers. But guess what? It's 2025, and we still don't have complete results. Why? Bureaucratic delays, missing evidence, materials that were supposed to be sent to labs just sitting in storage for years. In 2017, prosecutors discovered that materials meant for the Department of Public Safety had never even been transported. They'd been forgotten. In February 2024, a judge finally signed off on testing the sock, ordering samples be sent to the UNT Center for Human Identification within 30 days. It's been over a year. The results? Still pending. Darlie Routier has been waiting for DNA results for 16 years. 16 years! The testing that could free her or seal her fate remains incomplete. And there's more unidentified evidence. A bloody fingerprint on the coffee table. Testing in 2002 confirmed it didn't belong to anyone in the Routier family. Another fingerprint was found on the garage windowsill, also didn't match the family. Whose prints are those? We still don't know.
Right now, as you're watching this, Darlie Routier is sitting in her cell at the Patrick O'Daniel unit in Gatesville, Texas. She's 55 years old. She's been on death row for nearly 28 years. She hasn't hugged her surviving son, Drake, since her conviction in 1997. He was 7 months old when his brothers were murdered. He's now 30 years old. He grew up visiting his mother through bulletproof glass. Drake lives in Texas with his father, Darren, who divorced Darlie in 2011, but has never stopped believing in her innocence. He has her image and the images of all 3 boys tattooed on his arm. No execution date has been set. The DNA testing continues, and Darlie waits. Her mother, Darlie Key, visits regularly. She's never once doubted her daughter's innocence. "I want my daughter home," she said, "and then we will grieve together for Devon and Damon." Devon Rush Routier would be 36 years old today. He wanted to be 7. He never got to celebrate that birthday,
except at a gravesite with silly string and balloons while cameras rolled. Damon Christian Routier would be 34. He was stabbed multiple times in the back as he slept. His bloody handprint was found on the couch. In his final moments, little Damon tried to pull himself up, tried to escape, tried to survive. He made it to his mother's side. "Mommy, Mommy," he cried. Those were the last words he ever spoke. Whether his mother saved his life or took it is a question that has haunted America for nearly 28 years. So, what do you think? Is Darlie Routier a cold-blooded killer who murdered her own children and nearly got away with it? Or is she an innocent woman, a grieving mother who's been sitting on death row for 28 years for a crime she didn't commit? Drop your verdict in the comments. Guilty or innocent? Let's see where everyone stands. If this case made you think, hit that like button. If you want more deep dives into the cases that divide us, subscribe to True Crime Mysteries and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Share this video with someone who loves true crime. Let's get a conversation going. And before you go, tell me, what case should we cover next? What mystery keeps you up at night? Drop your suggestions below. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and never stop questioning. This is True Crime Mysteries. I'll see you in the next one.